And in November the 19th of 1946, Ideal Laundry exploded. Blew out some of these windows, blew out this window behind us. The church was called to make repairs, and they did. They came together. They didn't give up on the church. They made the necessary repairs. In March of 1947, we had the vision to buy the Stone Elementary School building on the corner. For you folks that don't know, that's why it's called Stone School, because it started on Stone Avenue. And our church had the vision to procure that building. And other properties around, across the street, the two lots beside us here. So the church has been blessed with vision and visionaries to carry out those things. In 1951, the church's vision and growth produced our education building, the building that's adjacent to the church here. Before then, we were meeting in several Sunday school classes below here, a building across the street, so it was spread out. But we saw the need to have the vision to build that. So, and amongst those things, we had the vision to procure a building over here that we use for our scouting program. What a brilliant vision that was from my standpoint. So, through the years, we've had the vision to take care of our worship center. And I think if you look around, if you look up, don't open your mouth, but if you look at the ceiling, if you look over here at the walls, you may have noticed the carpet. It's time that we make some repairs. It's just time. You know, we sit here and say, I know a lot of the questions are going to be, why didn't we do this while we were closed for the pandemic? Wouldn't that have been great? That wasn't on my mind, and I don't think that was on the church's mind. We were all worried about how we were going to survive. But we persevered and we got through. And here we are. We're looking forward to this church being 100 years old. There's not a lot of churches that can say that. So it's time now that we take care of our sanctuary, make the necessary additions, renovations. I can remember, and some of these guys here may have, and I'm going to make this short, when we installed the elevator, not the new one, I'm talking about the one in the hall. I can remember we had a fundraising effort to raise money to install an elevator, and children were not allowed to operate the elevator. We had to have an adult to operate the elevator. So we've come a long way. Today, we're going to hear from Bob Landers, our Property and Grounds Committee, regarding the scope and cost of the project to renovate our sanctuary. And then we'll hear from Mr. Russell Young, the Financial Oversight Council. He's going to cover the funding portion and redesignation of funds recommended for the project. So I want to remind you that today is strictly information. This coming Wednesday night, we will meet and have discussion, questions, answers. So feel free to go over to your handout, and then this coming Wednesday, we'll be glad to answer your questions and comments. So at this time, I'd like to call Mr. Bob Landers, if he would come forward and
Thank you, Joe. I don't think I can make a much better pitch than that, but I'll see what I can do. I'm Bob Landers. I serve on the Property and Grounds Committee. And today, I want to share the work of our committee with you regarding the Sanctuary Renewal Project. First, a little bit more history, maybe a little repetitive, but as most of you know, our church was founded in 1922, 100 years ago next March. A few months following that, our founders took a leap of faith and broke ground on this building. And a little more than a year of construction, and the first service was held in this sanctuary in 1923. So today, our sanctuary is 98 years old. We would all agree that it served us well, and our committee agrees that it's time to prepare it to serve us well into the future. The last significant update that was done in our sanctuary was in 1992. And we're not entirely sure of every little specific item that was done, but we feel relatively sure that the carpet and the paint dates back to that time. So in the years that have followed from that time, we've cleaned and stretched the carpet many times over. And we've scraped and patched and repaired the walls and the ceiling, which you might look around and think it's about time to do that. We've made essential repairs to the organ, and the sound system has always been a subject to keep updated and modify and repair. And there have been repeated efforts to find more space for the choir. Our choir area is really cramped, and we certainly need to serve our choir better. And then in 2009, we received and installed the beautiful stained glass windows that you see today. So after many meetings and discussions among ourselves and with contractors and architects, engineers, and others, the committee has arrived at a project that we think encompasses all the functional aspects of our sanctuary. The work we have planned would take place from the latter part of this month through November. And rather than read the list of work packages that are in your handout and their cost, I would really like to quickly walk you through the sequence of work items that will take place once we start. To start it all off, all of the pews in here on this main level will be removed to the gymnasium, relocated to the gymnasium, where they'll be inspected and repairs if necessary and polished up for reinstallation later. At the same time, we will take down all of the pipes from the pipe room. They'll be relocated off-site where they will be cleaned and retuned. Then the flooring and carpet throughout will be removed and discarded. And then we'll erect scaffolding throughout the entire sanctuary area, all the way up to provide access to the ceiling. Existing lighting will be removed, and the ceiling will be overlaid with new gypsum board, basically encapsulate what's there and have a whole new ceiling surface to prep for painting at that time. They'll also prep all the upper trim work, do any repairs that are needed and get it ready. Then we'll install new lighting, and we'll be retaining the chandeliers, of course. They'll be probably relighted, better lighted, but the chandeliers themselves will still remain. Then they'll prep and paint the ceiling and all the elevated areas, and then the scaffolding will all finally come down, and we'll be able to start with the rest of the items, which will involve installing new audio and video equipment throughout, all new systems. And then we'll rework the choir and platform area, which will primarily involve bringing the piano and organs forward just a bit and lower to the ground, the floor level, to provide better lines of sight and more space for choir seating. Then we'll complete the remaining painting on all the surfaces and trim, install new carpeting and flooring, and of course reinstall our pews and the organs, pipeworks back up in the pipe room. So in your handout that you have, you'll find quite a bit more detail about the project and the scope of work and the cost associated with that. So I would invite you to take your time this coming few days and study your handout and develop any questions that you might have so that we can address everybody's questions on Wednesday night. And I think Russell's going to come up and talk some more about finances.
Thank you, Bob. It's really amazing to think back that January of 2020, before this pandemic hit, that we actually voted as a church to pay off the final, I think it was about $275,000 of borrowings from the endowment for a $4+ million project that we paid off within 2 years, thanks to the generosity of this church, current and past members. And so that's really amazing to think back on. And here we are, roughly 15 months later, with another opportunity. On the back of the handout, and I'm not going to read every line for you, but there is kind of a summary of the proposed designation of funds that the FOC, the Financial Oversight Council, feels is readily available and still leaves us with a conservative balance to continue the standard operations of the church. But it essentially involves designating some already designated funds, or redesignated some already designated funds of about $128,000, and then just with our operating surplus, another $394,000 approximately. That still leaves us $300,000 in our operating account to kind of continue operations of the church on a standard monthly basis. And then in the end, it leaves us with the potential of borrowing approximately $78,000 from our endowment fund, which our church has done in the past. And it's just that precedent was put in place many years ago by some far smarter people than I and the current FOC members, and it's just been a beautiful process for our church to borrow from ourselves, from the endowment fund, which is from generous gifts of our members, and just creates a way to not have to borrow from the bank and kind of repay ourselves through principal and interest. And so that's the proposal, and the Financial Oversight Council feels that is still leaves us with sufficient funds and doesn't stretch us too much. With that said, full disclosure, if you look at our offering, and we haven't been having our kind of routine Wednesday night meetings for financial presentations, our offerings year to date are behind our budget, approximately $50,000. So we're a little behind, just to be open and honest with you. Thankfully, though, our expenses are under budget by nearly $50,000 as well. So our offerings and expenses are in line. So we're not like losing money month to month, but we are behind a little bit on our budget. So we want to make that clear. But all that said, the Financial Oversight Council feels that this is a project that, through these kind of redesignations, that we can afford and borrow some from ourselves. All that said, there is a contingency built into the proposed cost, and that amount is pretty close to the amount we may need to borrow from the endowment. So the goal, obviously, is that we don't have to borrow from the endowment, that we catch up on our offerings versus budget, that we go above and beyond with our gifts, and that in the end we don't even have to borrow from our endowment fund. With that said, I'd like to just read this challenge and then the conclusion, and then I'll make the formal recommendation. The church will feel more confident about our decision to move forward with this project if we remain faithful, generous, and consistent in our budget offerings. We will be challenging ourselves to designate offerings above and beyond our regular tithes and offerings to the Sanctuary Renewal Fund, hopefully to decrease and possibly eliminate any loan from the endowment. In this centennial year, when we are seeking to celebrate our past, understand our present, and embrace our future, we are challenging ourselves to recapture the spirit of adventure that characterized our spiritual ancestors a century ago when we formed our church. Trusting that God is always doing something new, We are excited about the opportunity that we have to prepare our spiritual home for the future that God has in store for us, and we are thankful to be in a position to do the proposed repairs and improvements without incurring any external debt. So, on behalf of Bob and the Property and Grounds Committee, myself and the Financial Oversight Council, with the support of the deacons, we recommend that the church proceed immediately under the direction of the Property and Grounds Committee with the proposed sanctuary renewal project as described in this presentation at a total cost not to exceed $600,000 to be funded according to the plan outlined in this material and administered by the Financial Oversight Council. Thank you.
I don't know about y'all, but I'm excited. What a great time in the life of our church that we're able to and willing to enhance the beauty of our sanctuary. Below us here is the color palette of the colors they've selected and materials. You may want to take a look at that as you leave. And I just remind you that this coming Wednesday at 6 o'clock here in the sanctuary, that's right, isn't it? We're going to have it in the sanctuary, Stephen? Yes. Yeah, okay. That's where I was going to be. I just want to make sure that's where y'all are going to be. So anyway, look over your handout and think about how God has been so good to us and the church here and the vision that's been going on since 1920, and let's just carry on that tradition. Let's close in a quick prayer, please. Dear Heavenly Father, we look to you for your guidance, your hand. Everything that we do, everything that we say is to glory your name, Lord. And as we move forward and try to do things to enhance our worship here, to spread your kingdom throughout the world, these things we ask in your name. Amen. This concludes our meeting.